Before we dive into this heart-pounding story, smash that subscribe button on K9 Miracle Stories right now. This tale of a heroic dog will grip your soul and leave you speechless. Subscribe, hit the bell, and join us to uncover the truth. It started with a bark. Not just any bark, but the kind that shattered the calm like a thunderclap, turning a sleepy Wednesday morning into something no one would ever forget. One moment, Mrs. Carroll's seventh grade art class was a blur of watercolor and chatter. The next, a German shepherd named Dante was lunging toward a painting on the far wall, teeth bared, his growls ricocheting off the walls like gunfire. At first, everyone thought he'd gone mad. The students screamed. Paint cups spilled, brushes clattered to the floor. And standing at the center of it all, frozen like a statue, was Officer Daniels, Dante's handler, eyes locked on his canine partner, unsure if he should restrain him or let him do what he came to do. That painting wasn't just art. Dante knew something, and what he did next would uncover a secret buried deeper than anyone at Lincoln Middle School ever imagined. But let's rewind for a second. The school had recently started a pilot program pairing local police officers and K9 units with schools. It was a new safety initiative after a series of incidents in nearby districts. Dante, a retired bomb-sniffing K9 with an impeccable record, was assigned to Lincoln as part of security presence with paws. Most of the kids loved it. They'd pet Dante in the halls, toss tennis balls in the quad, and compete for who could get him to do tricks during lunch. He was their hero in fur until the day he growled at the painting. The painting had always been there, hung high on the east wall of room 114. The piece was almost floor to ceiling, dark and moody, depicting an American flag tattered in the wind with soldiers' shadows stretching across a barren landscape. It gave most of the students the creeps. But Mrs. Carroll, an art teacher with a gentle voice and a grieving heart, insisted it was important. "It's a piece of history," she told them. No one questioned it until Dante did. It happened just 10 minutes into class. As students dipped brushes into trays and followed instructions to sketch a childhood memory, Dante, usually stationed quietly at the back near Officer Daniels, stood up. Then he walked, slow, deliberate, toward the painting. At first, Daniels thought he was sniffing leftover lunch, or maybe a squirrel had snuck in, but then the growl started, low, ominous, growing louder. "Dante, no," Daniels said softly, rising from his seat. Too late. Dante leapt. He launched toward the bottom edge of the painting, clamped his jaw down, and ripped. The canvas tore like fabric under a blade. A collective gasp filled the room. The teacher screamed. Kids ducked under desks. And behind the shreds of the artwork was a handle. Yes, a small, rusted metal handle embedded in what looked like part of the wall. But not drywall, steel, like a hidden panel. Daniels rushed forward, pulled Dante back by the harness, and stared at the exposed metal. The handle was real. The wall was not what it seemed. "Get Principal Harding," he said to a nearby student. "Now." The classroom emptied quickly after that. The hallway buzzed with confused students, whispers spreading like wildfire. Had the dog gone nuts? Did he smell a gas leak? Was it drugs? A bomb? Only Officer Daniels stayed behind, standing guard over the torn canvas and the mysterious handle. Mrs. Carroll sat in her desk chair, visibly shaken, fingers trembling as she tried to understand what had just happened. "I didn't know that was there," she kept repeating. "I swear that painting's been in my family since I was a child. My father gave it to me." Daniels believed her mostly, but Dante didn't lie. Midway through the chaos, the PA system crackled. "All classes are to remain in lockdown until further notice. This is not a drill." Whatever was behind that wall wasn't just a closet. An hour later, the bomb squad arrived. They scanned the room, inspected Dante's behavior logs, and carefully pried the handle open with magnetic tools and handheld scanners. With a groan, the hidden door creaked open, and a cold gust of air flooded the classroom. A hidden room, roughly the size of a walk-in closet. The space behind the wall was lined with old file cabinets, rusted lockers, a reel-to-reel tape recorder, and stacks of what appeared to be archived documents. There were no explosives, no drugs, but something about the way the air smelled, old, untouched, like a forgotten era, made everyone uneasy. Daniels looked at Dante. The dog sat quietly now, tail still, eyes locked on a room like a soldier on watch. Whatever this was, it was bigger than an overactive dog reacting to old paint, and far from over. The hallway outside room 114 was still buzzing when the district superintendent arrived, flanked by two plainclothes investigators from the State Department of Education. No one said the word cover up yet, but the way they avoided eye contact told Officer Daniels they were already thinking it. Inside the classroom, the air had turned heavier, like the moment right before a thunderstorm. The torn canvas lay on the ground, its patriotic imagery shredded and crumpled beside Mrs. Carroll's easel. Dante sat at the edge of the doorway to the hidden room, perfectly still, as if standing sentinel over a sacred grave. Principal Harding returned with a flashlight and a forced smile. We're going to keep this very quiet for now. No need to panic, parents. We'll say the dog detected mold or a rodent infestation. Daniels didn't answer. He crouched and shined his own light into the opening. The space wasn't just a hollow cavity in the wall. It extended a good 6 feet inward. The floor was tiled in the old 70s style linoleum, and there was a faint chemical smell antiseptic, like an abandoned hospital wing. You ever see anything like this? He asked one of the bomb squad members. Nope, the man said. But I'll tell you one thing. That dog didn't hit on explosives. Whatever made him go after this wall wasn't about a bomb. That's when they opened the first file cabinet. Inside were folders, dozens of them, some marked with student names, others labeled with codes. Project TS, Unit 14, Debrief Echo. All of them stamped with red ink. Confidential, Department of Defense. Daniel stepped back. This doesn't make sense, said Harding, his voice cracking slightly. This is a middle school. But it wasn't always. According to the old city records, which Daniels pulled up on his tablet in the hallway, Lincoln Middle had once been an Air Force administrative building during the Cold War. The school had purchased the property in 1983 and renovated it, but the files suggested parts of the original structure had never been demolished. Someone had walled off a room and hid it behind a painting. And for over 30 years, no one had noticed until Dante, calling the archivist, Daniel said, "We need to know what these codes mean, and someone needs to talk to Mrs. Carroll again." Down the hallway, Mrs. Carroll was in the nurse's office, sipping water from a paper cup, visibly shaken. When Daniel stepped inside, she looked up with watery eyes. "I didn't know," she said. "I swear, officer, that painting my father gave me when I graduated college. He was stationed somewhere in Europe during the 70s. He never talked about his job. Just said art was his way of remembering without speaking." Daniel sat beside her. "Do you know where he got the painting?" "No," she said, "just that he told me it was his last mission." A long silence passed. Then Mrs. Carroll said something that stuck with Daniels for the rest of the day. He once said, "Some truths are better painted than spoken." I didn't understand what that meant. Maybe now I do. Back in room 114, one of the investigators called Daniels over. "You might want to see this." Inside one of the folders labeled Echo documents, they found a map, hand-drawn, faintly colored. It showed the school grounds, but underneath it was a second set of markings, tunnels, rooms, and access points that no one on the school board had ever been told about. More chillingly, the map indicated one of the tunnel exits led to the local power plant. "You thinking what I'm thinking?" the investigator asked. "Yeah," Daniel said. "This wasn't just storage. This place was built for something active." At that moment, Dante growled again, low, barely audible, but it was enough to send a ripple of attention through the room. He wasn't looking at the file cabinet this time. He was staring at the floor. Daniels followed his gaze. Something about the linoleum felt uneven, a slight discoloration near the far wall. He knelt down, brushed away a thin layer of dust, and found what looked like a seam. "Hand me the crowbar," he said. The team pried open the panel, and underneath was a ladder leading down. Everyone in the room froze. "This keeps going?" Harding asked, voice barely a whisper. "Apparently," Daniel said. "Get the flashlight. I'm going down." He paused at the edge, looked at Dante, then back at the team. "And he's coming with me." They descended carefully. The ladder creaked but held. The air grew colder with each step. At the bottom was another chamber, smaller, darker, but clearly built to last. There were monitors, broken switches, and along the wall, a set of shelves filled with reels of magnetic tape. Daniels clicked on his body cam. One of the tape boxes was labeled Subject 9, Initiation Protocol, 1975, and beneath that, in faded ink, Property of Leighton Cole H. Carroll. Daniels' breath caught in his throat. That was Mrs. Carroll's father. Whatever this room once held, it wasn't just government secrets. It was personal. They didn't play the tape. Not yet. They'd need special equipment. But something told Daniels they had stumbled into the middle of a story that had been waiting decades to be found. And Dante, the dog that had barked at a painting, was the first one to listen. The next morning, the school was silent, not in the way it usually was, where kids stumbled sleepily into homeroom and teachers sipped lukewarm coffee while scanning lesson plans, but silent like a building holding its breath. Room 114 was under lock and key, guarded by 2 officers from the sheriff's department. Yellow tape stretched across the doorway like a warning from the past. Do not enter. Officer Daniels barely slept. He'd spent most of the night watching Dante pace the living room of his apartment. The dog had that look again, ears up, tail low, something weighing on him. Daniels had seen this behavior before. When they were in the field, it usually meant the job wasn't done. Neither of them could shake what they'd found, and now they had a box of tapes. One in particular had Daniels' mind spinning. Subject 9, Initiation Protocol, 1975, marked with the name of Mrs. Carroll's father. The school district had already called in a federal historical forensics team. A mobile audio lab would arrive by noon, but Daniels didn't wait. At 7:12 a.m., he stood outside the only place in town that might still have a working reel-to-reel player. Miller's Vinyl and Audio, a dusty little shop 3 blocks from downtown. Wes Miller, a Vietnam vet who ran the store, opened early just for Daniels. "You're lucky I never throw anything away," Wes said, patting the ancient silver machine like it was a classic car. "What are we listening to?" Daniels hesitated. "Something that was hidden for almost 50 years. I'm not even sure it's legal." Wes gave a knowing smile. "Son, I've seen worse." Hit play. The machine whirred. A few crackles. Then a voice came through, gravelly, clipped, unmistakably military. "This is Lieutenant Colonel Harold Carroll. Subject 9 has completed primary adjustment. Cognitive retention is above expected thresholds. The conditioning has taken hold." A pause. "Today we begin the integration process. If successful, Subject 9 will be the first viable candidate for permanent embedded memory suppression. Objective: long-term disassociation from operative history." Daniel sat back. Embedded memory suppression. He listened on. Another voice followed, younger, shaky. "I don't want to do this anymore. I want to go home. Please, can I talk to my dad?" "Proceed with cycle reset." The colonel's voice snapped. The recording cut. Static hissed through the speaker. Daniels turned to Wes. "Can you make a copy?" Wes nodded solemnly. "On it." As the machine spun again, Daniels stepped outside and called Principal Harding. "We got more than Cold War junk," he said. "This was a human experiment. And if I'm right, Subject 9 might have been a child." Harding's voice trembled. "What? What does that mean for us?" "It means," Daniels replied, "someone used this school, this building, as a testing ground, and the person who painted that mural might have been covering it up or trying to expose it." By the time Daniels returned to the school, a mobile FBI lab had parked near the faculty lot. Technicians set up scanners, dusted the room for hidden prints, and began mapping the blueprints of the hidden chamber and tunnel system. But one thing stood out. They couldn't find any official record of Subject 9. No birth date, no social security number, no real name. But they did find something else. In the drawer of an old desk in the underground room, buried beneath dust and forgotten paperwork, was a small silver locket. Inside, a black and white photo of a young girl, maybe 10 years old, and a man in military uniform. Daniels brought the locket to Mrs. Carroll. When she opened it, her hand flew to her mouth. "That's me," she whispered. "And that's my father. I remember this photo. I lost it when I was a child. Danielle's pulse quickened. Ma'am, we think you might have been here in that room. Subject 9 might have been you. Silence. She sat down slowly, trying to breathe. That can't be. I remember growing up overseas. I remember art school and my mom's apartment in Germany. I remember. But her voice trailed off because suddenly she didn't. Fragments of memory, faded images of fluorescent lights, a man with a clipboard, the cold floor tiles, began crawling back. Her hands trembled. I always had nightmares of being locked underground, she said. But I thought it was just childhood fear. Are you telling me my own father did this to me? Daniels didn't answer, but the look in his eyes said enough. Meanwhile, Dante had taken up post at the edge of the classroom again. He wasn't barking now. He just stood there, watching the hallway like a guardian, as if he was waiting for something or someone to come back. That night, Daniels walked through the tunnels again, this time with the FBI. They uncovered 3 more hidden compartments, each with similar contents. Reel-to-reel tapes, metal file boxes, and photos of unnamed children. It was a part of American history that had been erased, or tried to be. The story broke 3 days later. It made national headlines. Secret Cold War experiments uncovered in middle school. Parents were outraged. Protesters stood outside the school gates. The Department of Education launched an internal investigation. But amidst the chaos, one image captured the hearts of millions. A photo of K9 Dante standing tall in front of the torn painting, American flag still visible behind him, eyes locked forward. He had uncovered not just a mystery, but the truth, and he did it not with a weapon, not with a voice, but with the instincts only a dog could trust. The school didn't open the following Monday. Instead, news vans lined the curb where buses used to drop off kids. The flag out front flew at half-staff, not for a person, but for the memory of what the building had unknowingly housed beneath its art room floor. Parents demanded answers. Teachers sat in stunned silence during emergency staff meetings. Some asked to be transferred. A few quietly resigned. And inside his apartment, Officer Daniels sat at his kitchen table, flipping through documents the FBI had finally declassified. Dante lay beside his feet, ears twitching every time a floorboard creaked or a car passed outside. The file on top was labeled Operation Silent Brush, timeline 1974 to 1977. It wasn't a code name Daniels had seen before, but it connected the dots he'd been piecing together for days. The mural that Dante tore through had not been a random painting. It was an encoded message. The abstract patterns, swirling grays, layered reds, hints of sepia tones, were an artistic flair. They were part of a technique used by covert military psychological units to trigger suppressed memories through visual exposure. The kind of visual exposure Mrs. Carroll had unknowingly stood in front of for nearly a decade. She hadn't just brought her father's painting to school. She brought the key to unlocking everything he had buried. By Tuesday, the FBI's forensic team had digitized most of the tapes and documents. Daniel sat in the mobile command center parked behind the school, headphones on, listening to one of the recordings from a 1976 session. Subject 9 continues to ask for her mother. Emotional suppression protocol failed. Recommend chemical reset. Artist shows signs of visual hallucination. Paintings becoming erratic, possibly revealing more than intended. Daniels paused the tape. His jaw tightened. They had tried to erase a child's mind, but they hadn't expected her to become a teacher. And they definitely hadn't expected the dog to sniff out the one piece of her father's guilt that could undo the silence. That same day, Daniels visited Mrs. Carroll. She hadn't returned to school and wouldn't, not for now. Her small cottage on the edge of town was filled with art supplies, dusty photo albums, and boxes of old correspondence she'd never opened. She was painting when he arrived, not on a canvas, but on the window, her fingers dipped in blue, making childlike swirls on the glass. "I can't sleep," she said, not turning around. "Every time I close my eyes, I see hallways that don't exist and faces I don't know, but somehow—" Daniel stepped closer. "You were never supposed to remember, but you did, and I think you were the only one who could." She nodded slowly. "Do you think you regretted it?" "My father?" Daniels hesitated. "I think he tried to bury it by giving you the painting." I think it haunted him. Then he reached into his jacket and placed something on the table behind her, a red envelope. It had been hidden inside one of the final locked drawers discovered beneath the school. The handwriting on the front said, "For MC, when the world is ready." Mrs. Carroll picked it up with trembling hands. Inside was a letter, 2 pages, handwritten. She read it silently, then out loud. "My sweet Maggie, if you're reading this, I'm already long gone. I won't ask for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. They told me I'd be protecting the country, making mine stronger, shielding truth from the wrong hands. But they never told me the price. I thought I could protect you by hiding the past. But maybe truth doesn't want to be buried. Maybe it wants to be painted. I hope one day you find the strength I never had. You always did love Blue the most. Dad." Tears slipped down her cheeks as she placed the letter beside her paints. Daniels didn't say a word. Sometimes silence is the only sound truth respects. Later that week, the school board held a public meeting. The auditorium was packed. Parents, students, teachers, local journalists. Daniels was there in uniform, Dante at his side. When the board chair took the mic, the room fell quiet. "We've made the decision to permanently close room 114, she said. "The space will be sealed. The documents turned over to the Federal Archives. But we know this isn't the end. It's just the beginning of a story that was never meant to be told." A student raised their hand. "Is it true that a dog found it all?" Daniels looked down at Dante. The German shepherd sat poised, noble as ever. "It's true," Daniels replied, stepping forward. Dante didn't just bark at a painting. He barked at history, at memory, at pain no one wanted to face. And somehow he knew. He always knows. The crowd erupted in quiet applause. It wasn't loud. It wasn't wild, but it was respectful. It was human. Back home, Daniels opened his laptop and typed the title into the submission portal for Heroes for Animals. K9 Dog uncovers secret hidden in school wall. What he found changed everything. He hit publish. Then he turned to Dante. "Ready for what's next, partner?" Dante thumped his tail once on the floor, and somewhere in the back of Danielle's mind, he knew there was more to come. 2 weeks passed. By then, the story of Dante, the K9 who uncovered a decades-old government secret buried inside a middle school wall, had gone viral. National news networks called it the bark that broke the silence. Late-night talk shows made it their feel-good segment of the month. And for a moment, the town of Fairhaven, Oregon, was at the center of the country's attention. But Officer Daniels wasn't watching the news. He was sitting in a folding chair at the back of a makeshift FBI archive center in a vacant library building, flipping through a second folder they had nearly missed. Most of the original documents had been turned over to the Department of Defense, but few stragglers remained, scattered among old-school supply boxes and dusty janitorial closets that no one thought to check. This file was labeled simply Subject 10. Inside, a grainy photo of a girl, maybe 8 years old, dark curls, oversized eyes staring directly into the camera. There was a number inked at the top, 841-2010, and scribbled in pen beneath that, "No known relatives." Final cycle incomplete. Status disappeared. Daniel stared at the photo for a long time. Unlike the first subject, Mrs. Carroll, who had unknowingly lived an entire life on top of her own hidden past, this one had vanished. No medical record, no school enrollment, no adoption papers, just one note, barely legible on a carbon copy. Last seen near Southfield Orphanage, 1982. Dog reported disturbance. Entry denied. Case closed. A dog. It always came back to the dogs. Daniels leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, feeling the weight of it settle into his chest. What were they doing to these kids? Were they all like Maggie Carroll? Part of some twisted Cold War mind program gone rogue? And why did dogs keep showing up in these files? Across the room, Agent Beach, the lead on-site FBI analyst, walked over with a new stack of tapes and a tired smile. "You look like you've seen a ghost," she said. "Maybe I have," Daniels replied, holding up the photo. "Ever heard of Subject 10? Beach took the folder, scanned the contents, and exhaled slowly. We didn't think there were more, but if this is legit, she's still out there. Or was never found, Daniels said. Either way, it wasn't just Maggie. Beach sat beside him, glancing at Dante, who was lying quietly under the desk, alert as always. You ever think maybe these dogs remember something? She asked. Like they were trained for more than what we know. Daniels looked down at Dante. He remembered their first mission together, a warehouse raid in San Jose. Dante had pulled him out of the path of a collapsing beam by the collar. No prior training for that kind of response. Just instinct or something deeper. Let's say they do, Daniel said. Then the real question is, what are we still not seeing? That Friday, Mrs. Carroll visited the school for the first time since the incident. Not to teach, she had taken an indefinite leave, but to leave a painting. It was abstract again, but warmer. Soft blues and whites, swirls of yellow and green. It didn't hide anything. It didn't encode memory. It simply invited peace. She asked for it to be hung in the cafeteria. For the kids, she said. When Daniels met her afterward, she seemed lighter, not healed. No one could heal that fast, but more whole, as if naming the truth had stopped it from festering in silence. I've been dreaming of her, she told him, unprompted. The girl in the second file. I don't know how or why, but I see her in these dreams. She's always hiding, always afraid, and there's always a dog nearby. Not Dante, a different one, black and white border collie. Daniels felt the hair on his arm stand up. She might be real, he said. We found a file. No record of her after 1982. Mrs. Carroll didn't flinch. Instead, she looked toward the edge of the field behind the school, where a group of students played soccer. We should look for her, she said quietly. Daniels nodded. We will. That night, he returned to his patrol route. Fairhaven was quiet again, but it didn't feel the same. Every alley, every warehouse, every old abandoned house. It all felt different now, as if history was still watching, waiting. Dante rode shotgun as usual, but halfway down Main Street, he sat up, ears forward. What is it? Daniels asked. Dante let out a low whine. They were passing the old Southfield lot, the place where the orphanage had once stood. It had burned down years ago, replaced by a strip mall that never quite took off. Daniels pulled over. Dante jumped out before the door fully opened, nose to the ground, zigzagging to cracked pavement like he was following something invisible. Then he stopped, sat down, and stared at a manhole cover near the corner of the lot. Daniels approached cautiously, flashlight sweeping. No sounds, no movement, but etched faintly into the cement beside the cover was something Daniels hadn't seen before, a 4, a dash, a 10. He knelt, ran his fingers over it. It wasn't a street number. It was a designation. The girl, Subject 10, had been here, and maybe, just maybe, she still was. Daniels didn't sleep that night. He filed a report, called Agent Beach, and marked the location for full excavation. It would take time, permits, ground radar. But something told him this wasn't over. As he poured himself a second cup of coffee at 2:43 a.m., he glanced at Dante, who was staring out the window, tail gently thumping. He walked over. Outside, on the dark street corner across from his apartment, stood a young woman wearing a hoodie, barefoot. She didn't wave. She didn't move. But even from that distance, Daniel saw the girl from the photo, and beside her, a black and white dog, watching, waiting. Then, like mist, they were gone. It was nearly dawn when Daniels finally stepped out of his apartment. The air was cold, the sky still a soft gray with streaks of orange breaking across the horizon. Dante padded silently beside him, ears twitching at the sound of early morning life. Distant traffic, a rustle of wind through old sycamores, the low hum of a town beginning to stir. But Daniels wasn't thinking about breakfast or work, or even the upcoming FBI debrief. He was thinking about her, the barefoot girl, the one who had vanished the moment he looked out the window, the one with the face that matched the photo in Subject 10's file, only older, weathered by time and memory. And standing beside her, the mysterious black and white dog. No collar, no tags, just that knowing stillness, like Dante when he sensed something beyond what humans could comprehend. He hadn't dreamed it. He knew that much. And even if the cameras on the street corner captured nothing, no shadows, no movement, he believed what he saw. By 9 a.m., the field team had arrived at the old Southfield lot. They cordoned off the area around the manhole and set up ground-penetrating radar. As Daniels watched from his cruiser, he felt that familiar gnawing tension at the base of his neck. Not fear, exactly, but the heaviness of knowing the past wasn't finished with them yet. 20 minutes in, the technician raised a hand. "We got a hollow space beneath the concrete," she said. "Roughly 10 feet down, about the size of a small room." Beach nodded. "Start digging." The excavation took most of the day. Underneath layers of asphalt, soil, and reinforced steel, they uncovered a chamber, sealed, no external locks, no hinges, like someone never meant it to be found again. But with enough effort, they pried it open. Inside was a small room, bare walls, rusted chairs, molded filing cabinets, and painted across the far wall, barely visible under years of grime, was a mural done in a child's hand. Figures, a girl, a dog, a gate, and above it, scratched in black paint, "I remember now." Daniel stepped inside, heart pounding. On a dusty shelf, he found a journal. The pages were brittle, the ink faded but readable. "They called me 10. They said I didn't have a name, but I did. I just forgot it. The dog remembered, though. He never left. I hear him sometimes, even when the lights go out. I think he's the only part of me they couldn't erase." The final page was torn, but written at the bottom of the inside cover in a rushed, childlike scrawl were 3 words: "Still watching, still here." News of the discovery broke that night. Headlines buzzed across the nation again. "Second Cold War bunker discovered beneath Fairhaven. Possible survivor identified." But unlike before, the town didn't erupt in panic or outrage. They gathered. Candlelight vigils were held at Lincoln Middle School and the Southfield lot. Former students of Mrs. Carroll shared stories online about how her class had always felt like a safe place, even before anyone knew why. Artists began recreating her paintings, interpreting the blues and golds as signs of healing. And as for Daniels, he finally got a hit. A woman in Idaho saw the story and contacted the FBI. She ran a rescue center for retired service dogs and said a black and white border collie had shown up at her ranch 11 years ago, half-starved and skittish. The only thing he responded to was the name Finn, the same name found etched under the mural in the underground room. He was still alive. They brought him to Fairhaven. When Mrs. Carroll saw him, she knelt without speaking, and the dog walked straight to her, rested his head on her knee, and closed his eyes. Dante stood nearby, tail wagging gently, as if offering a silent salute. The town eventually rebuilt the school's east wing into a memorial art gallery. They called it the Room Between Walls. It didn't display traditional war art or educational achievements. Instead, it showcased paintings from children across the country, art that expressed pain, memory, recovery, and truth. Mrs. Carroll's new piece hung at the center. It showed 2 dogs, Dante and Finn, standing at the edge of a forest. In the background, a school, a girl's shadow, and a door that had finally opened. Daniels never went back to regular patrol. He now worked full-time as a community liaison officer, teaching kids about safety, about courage, and about listening, even when the message comes from the most unexpected voice. And Dante, he became something of a legend, a hero without a cape, whose bark changed lives more than 1,000 speeches ever could. Sometimes, late at night, Daniel still checks that street corner. He hasn't seen the girl again, but he's certain she's out there. Maybe not in body, maybe only in memory, but real all the same. And when he closes his eyes, he always hears the same thing: a bark, a scratch, and a whisper that says, "Remember, life has a strange way of revealing what we try hardest to bury. Sometimes it takes decades. Sometimes it takes a dog." So, let me ask you this, dear viewer. What hidden part of your story is still waiting to be heard? Has a dog ever led you to a truth you didn't expect? Will you be brave enough to listen? Like, comment, and share this story with every dog lover you know. Subscribe to K9 Miracle Stories for more tales of courage and heart. Don't let these stories stay buried. Join us, and let's keep listening to the dogs who know.